Hello and welcome back to the channel. Hope you don't mind a little bit of wind noise out here. Just felt like riding down to the park in my neighborhood and shooting a quick video. A little update on what I've done to the Giordano Trieste. And if you saw my last video, you'll know that I had mentioned not liking the fact that it came with the micro shift drivetrain as opposed to the Shimano, which has a little bit wider ratio cassette on it, and I have fixed that now. So put an 11 to 34 tooth cassette. It's still 8-speed, $20 from Amazon. It's a Sunrace brand cassette, so actually decent quality, nickel plated cogs. Good part for 20 bucks, honestly. And then this is a micro shift, just cheapo mountain bike derailleur long cage. Had it from another project. It had you can see, very light label there. That got rubbed off just from handling it. Otherwise, it's brand new. And, in the parts bin, didn't have to do anything. I needed to put a longer chain on this. Another parts bin item had a new KMC chain, the exact same chain that was on the bike, but just longer length because it was still new in the box. So the way I look at this, I paid 20 bucks for the cassette, and there was a cost associated with the chain and the derailleur at one time, but they've been in the parts bin for who knows how long, a year, 2 years, a few months, whatever it may be, and I'm replacing them with like quality parts that are basically like new as well. So I don't really associate a cost with doing that stuff to it. Basically just what I had to pay out of pocket recently to get this thing going. So 20 bucks for the cassette upgrades my drivetrain to an 11 to 34 tooth. So that 34 tooth there, 34 tooth there gives you a 1-to-1 ratio. I would love to have a 30 and 46 tooth crankset on the front, like a true gravel bike should, if you have a double crankset, double chainring crankset. But I'm not going to spend the money on this. I'm trying to keep this bike as inexpensive as possible. I just, it's a decent enough bike, especially for the money, but to me it's not worth spending all that much money on it to make a bunch of upgrades. Just trying to use what I have on hand. Like my Shimano clipless pedals, already had those. That's a cool deal. Bottle cage, already had that. Put a new saddle on it. This is a specialized body geometry saddle. That came in, I don't know, another bike once upon a time. I may have gotten it at a swap meet. I honestly don't remember. The other thing I just recently purchased for this was a higher angle stem. So the stem that comes on it, on this size large frame, 100 millimeter extension, and about a 7-degree rise. It's not labeled like this one is. This one's 17 degree plus or minus. You can flip it over and it's negative 17 degrees. The other one's probably about 7 degrees. That's pretty typical of, just based on how it looks. I did go 10 millimeters shorter, 90 millimeters. Wanted to maintain as much height as possible with the extra rise that I've got. So, if you have a stem that's angled up a bit more, but you shorten it, then it's not really any taller. It might actually be shorter. So I just went 10 millimeters shorter just to bring, with the extra height and slight decrease in length, brings the bars back a little bit and brings them up just where I want them. So exactly what I needed. And then I like to angle my bars just a little bit up like that. So it feels better to me when I'm riding up here on the hoods. I very seldom ride down here in the drops, and that's just what I do. Other little cosmetic upgrades I've done here. Put a nice little stem cap on here. Little concave design, looks a little bit neater than the kind of convex sort of stem cap that had come on the bike. And again, in the parts bin already, didn't cost me anything. Cell phone holder, parts bin, didn't cost me anything. Bolt-on wheel skewers, have these things, wheels more securely on the bike. Had them in the parts bin, didn't cost me anything. Gunmetal gray to match the paint. Little valve stem caps. I had bought like a whole huge multi-pack of colored aluminum anodized valve caps once upon a time. They were in the parts bin, didn't cost me anything. Gunmetal gray handlebar end plugs in the parts bin. Yeah, didn't cost me anything. So there we go. Just trying to keep this bike as inexpensive as possible. One issue I did have with the bike, I noticed when I got it, was there was a little bit of slop in the bearings on the crank, and I attempted to adjust the preload, which I'll walk you around here, get you in here so you can see what's going on. So this is a Shimano style, Holotech style crank set. So you've got the pinch bolts and then a preload bolt right there that kind of pulls everything together and takes any of the slop out of the bearings in the bottom bracket there. I tried to adjust that, and the original bolt, which looks like this, it's got the Pro Wheel logo in it, was pretty tight, didn't want to spin. I got it a little bit tighter, maybe a little bit of slop out of the bearings, but it still had a little bit of a clunk. So I decided to pull the crank out because I wanted to make sure there was grease on the spindle in there. And when I did so, first thing I noticed was the whole thing was wobbling as I was spinning it out, and I was like, uh-oh, that thing is cross-threaded. Sure enough, you can see on the threads right there, those things are stripped, and that was from when they initially installed this thing. They went in crooked with it, and it's a plastic bolt, so very, very easy to strip those threads out. And that, unfortunately, would never function properly. So probably could have gotten this warranted by emailing Giordano or Kent, which is their parent company. And I mean, they might have sent me like a whole new crank set. That's kind of how they operate. They send you more than you really need. But anywho, didn't feel the need to do that because, one thing, I was able to get a replacement aluminum part next day for just a couple of dollars. I think I paid $9 something for a 3-pack of these. This is an 18 millimeter bolt, which is smaller than what the Shimano bottom brackets typically use. There's some different sizes out there. Some different crank sets have used different sizes, but most of the Shimano crank sets use a 20 millimeter preload bolt. So this is slightly smaller. You got to get one that's 18 millimeters for this Pro Wheel crank set. Again, your crank set may be completely different with what it needs. So there you go. Had to get that fixed up, but that was a really simple, easy, quick fix, and now everything's good to go there. But otherwise, everything's doing pretty good. The brakes are actually feeling a little bit better. Seems like the pads and the rotors are getting bedded in. They're not great. They'll never be great, but they're decent enough. And I'm going to, maybe at some point, if I do decide to keep this bike, upgrade the brake housing to a compressionless housing. That'll help a lot with the brake feel and how effective these things are, because you're basically eliminating a lot of the like flex in the brake cable and the brake housing when you're, grabbing the brake levers. So that is potentially something I'll do, but I'm not going to do that unless I'm going to swap out this handlebar tape, which, again, kind of thin, but I like how grippy it is. So honestly, if I'm wearing my padded gloves, it doesn't feel too bad, and I'll probably just stick with it. Otherwise, pretty impressed with the bike, especially for, let me guess, I think I've got, if you add up what I paid for the cassette, the stem, that little crank preload bolt I just showed you, I'm probably in this bike for a total of $275. So for a brand new bike, I think that's pretty reasonable. Just got to keep in mind, I have some of these parts laying around. If you have to buy all this stuff fresh, it's you're gonna have more money tied up in that than what I do. But for someone like me who enjoys tinkering with bikes, who has a lot of stuff laying around, this is a really great, fun little project to try out, because I'm used to riding much nicer, higher end, more expensive bikes. So it's fun to see what you can get for your, little money as possible. And probably going to be it for this bike as far as videos that I'm shooting. I can't think of anything else I really want to talk about with it. And, you know, if I do, I'll throw up a video, but I'll just, you know, probably buy something else again in the near future, because this is the 5th budget bike that I've picked up over the last couple of years, and I have fun with these things. And I hope you all enjoy seeing some of this content. I appreciate you watching, and if you care to subscribe to my channel, I very much would appreciate that. Leave a comment, like it, dislike it, tell me what you think. More importantly, go out and ride your bike. Y'all have a nice day.